When thinking about your practice today, things you might want to have with you is a blanket or cushion to sit on. Sometimes that can support tension in lower back or in your hips if you're noticing any tension in your hips. Or you could be sitting on the ground. You might have your legs crossed. Some of you might prefer to have your legs extended or your feet on the ground with your knees up. So you get to choose what your supportive seated form is today, and you can always change your mind. So when considering this practice, there's two things to keep in mind. One is an opportunity to notice sensations in your muscles, in your body. And then based on what you notice, the second opportunity is to make choices. Maybe choosing to engage in stillness or movement. Perhaps it's a choice to disengage and stop the movement altogether and then re-engage when you're ready. It might be a choice to amplify the sensation and create more of a stretch, or to back off the form and reduce the sensation. So in this practice, you get to be in charge of your choices. You get to be in charge of your body. So as you come to your supportive seated form, throughout the practice, your eyes could be open, your eyes could be closed. You might take a moment to see if from this place, noticing the ground underneath your legs or underneath your seat is available to make contact with as you perhaps begin to turn your gaze inward. And you might shift or create some movement to support noticing those different points of contact, those different points of pressure. Maybe today you're interested in bringing some length into your spine. And you can always release this length in your spine if you're choosing to bring some length in. Perhaps you take a moment to notice that you're breathing, your rhythm of breath. And if you'd like to create some movement of your head and neck, there's an invitation to draw your left ear towards your left shoulder. Perhaps checking in with the sensation you might be experiencing on your right side of your neck or into your shoulder. And if you're interested in potentially increasing that sensation, you might draw your right fingertips towards the ground. You might even make contact with the ground as you lean your head and neck towards the left. Perhaps you add some breath as you stretch the right side of your neck and shoulder. And if your fingertips are reaching towards the ground, you might bring your hand back to your lap or your legs. Maybe you roll your chin down towards your chest to bring your right ear towards your right shoulder as one way to bring your ear towards your shoulder. And one side might feel different to the other, so you might make a different choice. Option to extend your left fingertips towards the ground. Maybe noticing that you're breathing here. Perhaps continuing for 3, maybe for 2, maybe for 1. Whenever you're ready, an invitation to bring your left hand back to your legs and your lap if you're extending it to the ground, and perhaps engaging in some movement of your head and neck that feels supportive for you. So that might involve rolling your head and neck in half or full circles as one way to create movement. Finding your pace or your rhythm of movement, which this morning might feel slower, might be most interesting, or perhaps creating movement at a pace that's useful for you, a little bit faster, feels more interesting. And whenever you're ready, if you're creating movement with your head and neck, beginning to bring your head back to center in your own time. With an offer to bring your hands together, your palms together in front of you. You might even notice your hands making contact with one another. You could press your hands in towards one another and then release, seeing if today feeling that contact between your hands is available. You could continue to be in this inquiry, or you might interlace your fingers and press your palms away from you. Option two, maybe round your upper back. This might create some sensation in your back body, or you might notice sensation in your palms and your wrists. One option is to begin to extend your palms towards the ceiling. Perhaps bringing some length to your armpits or your side body. You might be interested in leaning from one side to another. And this might shift sensation from one side to another. If you're noticing sensation in your armpits or your ribs, there's a possibility you might not notice sensation, and that's welcomed as well, right? That's a form of noticing too. If you have your hands extended towards the ceiling and are leaning side to side, you might come back to center and perhaps bring your interlaced fingers and hands in behind the back of your head and neck, if that is of interest to you. Maybe even taking a moment to allow your head to rest into the support of your hands. You might pause here for a few moments and notice if that might offer anything for you. And you could stay here longer if that interests you. And if movement is of interest, perhaps beginning to create a circular motion with your upper body while supporting your head and neck. And so you might move in a circular motion, or you might notice an interest to shift your elbows from side to side and move side to side. It's another option. And if you're choosing a circular motion, sensation might shift from across the front of your body, across the front of your collarbones towards across your upper back. Just a possibility. You might notice sensation elsewhere. Perhaps switching directions, if you haven't already done so, is of interest. You might continue for 3, stopping at any point, maybe for 2. And for 1, whenever you're ready, coming back to center and perhaps beginning to release your head and neck, allowing your muscles, your bones to receive the weight of your head, an invitation to release your hands down, perhaps bringing your hands to your knees, with an invitation to perhaps create some movement in your spine that might involve leaning forward, perhaps leaning to one side, rounding your back body, and then leaning to the opposite side, which might create a circular movement for your spine or your upper body. That's one option for movement. There's no right or wrong way to explore movement of your spine. You might notice an impulse to move in a different way than I'm offering. Or perhaps maintaining some stillness is of most interest for you this morning. Finding your size of motion that feels supportive, knowing you can change your mind. And perhaps continuing for 3, maybe for 2, maybe for 1. Whenever you're ready, an invitation to come back to center in your own time, taking whatever time you need. And perhaps untucking your legs if they were crossed and placing your feet on the ground. I'm going to take the opportunity to remove the support I have under my seat. You might choose the same option, and you might keep it there. And there's an invitation to have your feet a little bit wider than hip width apart. And your hands, they might come behind you to support the weight of your back body. Option to begin to lean your knees any amount towards one side, and then coming back to center and perhaps shifting your knees to the opposite side. So there's a opportunity to perhaps begin to find a rhythm of moving your knees from side to side. Finding a range of motion that supports you in your hips and for your knees. Perhaps taking the opportunity to look at your feet moving on the ground. You might see your feet rolling from side to side. Another option is to perhaps see if today, bringing your attention inwards, to feel your feet rolling side to side on the ground. Maybe you feel your feet this morning rolling side to side. You might even look at your feet and feel your feet at the same time. And then when you're ready, bring your knees back to center. And I'm just going to shift my body to come parallel with the mat, with an invitation to begin to bring yourself down onto the ground. So that might involve bringing your hands behind your knees or extending your fingers in front of you, or you could bring yourself down in your own way, perhaps beginning to round your spine down to the ground if that's of interest. Taking what time you need to adjust your body to allow yourself to settle or to land on the earth beneath you. Perhaps taking the opportunity to draw your knees in towards your chest or in towards your torso. Your hands might be holding your knees, or perhaps wrapping your arms around your legs is of interest. Maybe taking a moment to create movement, wobbling side to side or rocking side to side. You may notice your back ribs shifting points of contact on the ground beneath you. And then when you're ready, coming back to center, perhaps releasing your feet down to the ground, an invitation to have your feet about hip width apart, if that is available for you. And perhaps pressing into the ground with your left foot to support some stability for your upper body. You might notice your spine pressing slightly towards the ground if you are pressing your left foot into the ground, with an invitation to maybe begin moving your right knee towards your right armpit and then lowering your foot towards the ground any amount. Beginning to find a range of motion of raising and lowering your foot or moving your knee towards your body and away from your body, towards your hips. And the invitation is to perhaps find a range of motion that feels supportive for your hip, your right hip joint. You might hear some noise or feel some clicking or sounds from your right hip joint. And the invitation is to see if you change your range of motion, if the experience in your hip joint might change. There's no destination to get to in this movement, more of a opportunity to notice what range of motion or what pace might interest you today. And then when you're ready, you could continue here, or you might draw your right knee in towards your chest, opportunity to hold your knee with your hands, perhaps keeping your left foot where it is, or an option to extend your foot down towards the bottom of your mat, which might amplify some sensation across the front of your left hip. You get to make your choices, perhaps based on what sensations feel supportive for your muscles in your hip or in your legs. Perhaps for some of you, using your hands that are holding your
right knee, if you're engaging in this form, to guide your knee towards the outer edge of your mat and then perhaps towards the center of your body. So you might guide your knee side to side any amount, which might contribute to changing sensation in your muscles around your hip, your right hip. You might choose stillness. All choices today, all choices are of equal value. You get to meet yourself where you're at. And when you're ready, if your left leg was extended, perhaps sliding your foot back to the floor to bend your knee. Maybe extending your right leg towards the ceiling, perhaps holding in behind your right hamstring. Option to roll your ankle or point and flex your ankle, creating some movement if you'd like. Again, some sounds or clicking sensations might be showing up there if you're creating movement. And then when you're ready, bending your right foot, placing it towards the ground, and an invitation if you'd like to explore those forms on the other side, perhaps pressing your right foot into the ground to support some stability for your upper body. And you might begin to move your knee towards your left knee towards your left shoulder, beginning to create a forward and back motion with your left leg. And one hip joint might feel different to the other, so you might make different choices. Perhaps on this side, your range of motion is different. Perhaps your pace of movement is different. I can notice on this side, there's more clicking in this joint, so I'm gonna make my range of motion a little smaller to notice what that might change. An opportunity to perhaps bring some curiosity to your experience. You might continue here for 3, maybe for 2, maybe for 1. Option to draw your left knee in towards your left shoulder, perhaps holding onto your knee with your hands. You could keep your right foot where it is, or you might extend it down towards the bottom of your mat. Maybe noticing that you're breathing. You might be interested in adding some breath or lengthening your breath. Either choosing stillness in your version of your form, or you could use your hands to guide your left knee from side to side, which might create movement in your left hip and hip muscles. When you're ready, if your right foot is extended to the bottom of your mat, you might draw your foot in towards the ground to bend your knee, perhaps extending your left leg towards the ceiling any amount. Option to hold the back of your leg while maybe creating movement with your ankle in a way that feels useful for you. This might create sensations in the arch of your foot or your muscles going over the top of your foot. One possibility to notice. And then when you're ready, perhaps bending your knee and placing your left foot on the ground, beginning to prepare for your version of a resting form. So resting form today might be with your feet out to the edges of your mat and your knees leaning in towards one another. Maybe your resting form is with your legs extended down towards the bottom of your mat. You could always place something under your knees. Your hands might rest on your torso, or maybe they rest on the ground next to you. And if you're noticing lower back tension, or if it interests you, you might be interested in resting on your side today. That's an option that's available too. Or for some of you, you might be interested in resting sitting up. So taking whatever time you need to find a supportive resting form. And once you've found your resting form, there's an option to perhaps take a lengthened inhale, and maybe a lengthened exhale. And if you're resting on the ground, you might bring awareness to your head resting on the ground underneath your head supporting your head to rest there. Or perhaps you bring awareness to your upper back or your lower back resting on the ground. Or you might bring awareness to your legs resting on the ground if that feels available today. Your eyes, they might be open, they might be closed, and you're welcome to make any adjustments or movements at any point within your resting form while we take the opportunity to pause and rest quietly together for a few moments. And when you're ready, perhaps creating movement of your fingers and your toes or your hands and your feet. Noticing if there's a movement or stretch you'd like to do to support bringing yourself out of your resting form. You might extend your fingers and reach between your toes and fingertips if you're open. Your back body. And if you're resting on the ground, perhaps taking the opportunity to roll over to one side. Pausing there if you'd like for a few moments. And then beginning to bring yourself back up to a supportive seated form in your own time. And once you're in your supportive seated form, there's an invitation to perhaps bring one or both hands to rest below your collarbones. Make contact with your body. Maybe taking a moment to offer yourself some kindness or some gratitude for taking time to check in, to make choices that were supportive for your body. And if there's a higher power, higher source you'd like to honor, you might take a moment to do so. And if your hand is resting below your collarbones, perhaps releasing your hand and your eyes were closed, beginning to allow light to enter your eyes as you're ready. Maybe allowing color or noticing texture. An option to begin to externally orient around your space, around your room after perhaps having a lot of time orienting inward.
Seeing what you might notice now. What colors or shapes might stand out for you. Perhaps doorways or windows bring your attention, or you might even look behind you. And I'm going to take the opportunity to bring myself forward.